Well, hello everyone. This is our weekly webinar here at Doman International. It's historically been called Start the Week with Spencer, but this week we're actually announcing a change of name. Okay, so now this is going to be called The Healing Brain. And what we're going to be doing now is uploading these sessions to podcast. So even if you missed it and you wanted to go to your favorite podcast source and listen to these episodes, you can. So yeah, from now on, we're calling ourselves The Healing Brain. So welcome. As everyone probably knows who joins us regularly, parents join from around the world and ask us their biggest questions in these sessions. So whether you're joining me right now on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, you can type your questions into the subject, into the comments box, and we will answer them in order. Now, today, I wanted to discuss my 3 favorite chapters from the Doman Method book. I've got it here so I can show all of you the Doman Method book. So I wanted to just tell you what my 3 favorite chapters are and just read you slight excerpts with the hopes of inspiring you, giving you a bit of background about why the Doman Method has success with brain development, and also hopefully to encourage all of you to get your own copy. So before I jump into the book, we'll just quickly announce upcoming events at Doman International. So Colleen, in terms of availability at our Philadelphia clinic, do we have any appointment availability coming up?
Yes, the beginning of March 9th, I think, is the next live appointment we have available in Philadelphia. That's actually really pretty soon, which is nice because we do try to schedule out 6 to 8 weeks. But March 9th is available. We also have, I believe, one spot left for March 16th, the following week. And then we pick up again in April and May. It's hard to believe we're already talking about April and May, but we are. So
perfect, yeah. Great, yeah. And just for some upcoming trips, our team is in February. I'm actually going to be on this trip. We are going to New Zealand to see families there. In March, we have appointments available in Serbia and Croatia. In April, we're going to be at our headquarters in Europe, which is in Italy. So if you're interested in appointments in Italy, please reach out to us. In May, we have appointments in New Delhi and Bangalore, India, and in Dubai as well. So, and then of course, we have appointments available at our Philadelphia clinic at different times of the year. Our next appointment, as Colleen said, is 5 weeks from now, March 9th. And we also have remote appointments available as well. Well, what I'm going to do now, while I'm waiting for questions, again, if you're joining me, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, start putting your questions in and we'll answer them in order. I wanted to just tell you a little bit about what are my 3 favorite chapters from the Doman Method, From Special Needs to Wellness. This is the first book that we recommend to every parent of a child with special needs who wants to learn more about the Doman Method. What are the foundations behind our program, both philosophical and scientific foundations behind this very special program, and the history behind it all. This book is also very practical, okay? So it gives many recommendations on things like how to help your child learn to speak, how to help your child learn to read. If your child is immobile, does not walk yet, what can you do to help your child walk? So it really is the most practical book out there about how to help children with neurodevelopmental delays. So let me get started with my first favorite chapter, and that is chapter 3. Chapter 3 in the Doman Method book is called Neuroplasticity, and it talks all about that special phenomenon of the human brain to change when it's given the right kind of stimulation. And I wanted to read to you just a little excerpt from the neuroplasticity chapter, because this underpins why the Doman Method is so effective. So here it is. Neuroplasticity, the brain grows by use. Since the 1950s, Glenn Doman taught every parent of a child with special needs who came to learn about the Doman Method that the most important of all the principles of brain development was the brain grows by use. The underlying purpose of the Doman Method program is to provide extraordinary daily stimulation and opportunity for the child with special needs to use their brain. We and the families we work with do our best to continue this process throughout the day until the child is ready to go to bed. The principle guides the Doman Method program that we designed for children. It was considered a revolutionary and radical idea many decades ago and is now established in the scientific literature. The idea that the human brain could change during a person's lifetime. The ability of the brain to change and adapt based on activity and the environment is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is now famous and a well understood neurological concept. Now, all neurophysiologists know that the brain grows by use. That is one of the most exciting areas of study. Many top neurophysiologists worldwide continue to dedicate their laboratories to researching this phenomenon. Sadly, for children with brain injury, many professionals who work with these children do not completely understand or exploit neuroplasticity and neurophysiology to help the child achieve their best potential. Their focus tends to be on the brain's pathology, right? Meaning the problems with the brain, rather than neuroplasticity and ways to promote it. Their viewpoint is pathological rather than physiological, meaning they're focusing on the disease rather than what to do to help heal. If they understood that the brain could change with environmental enhancement, they would look differently at these children. Glenn Doman was attacked early on for his radical idea that the injured brain could change and improve. Although research since the 1930s has shown that the brain does in fact respond to environmental changes. It took decades of the professional world to catch on. In a May 2006 edition of Time magazine, it was written that neuroplasticity was the capacity of the brain to develop and change throughout life, which is something Western science once thought was impossible. That was in 2006. Keep in mind, Glenn Doman said that in 1955. So wrapping up here, it says the brain grows by use. These are the 5 most important words for the successful treatment of children with neurodevelopmental disabilities, whether they have been diagnosed with autism, cerebral palsy, ADD, developmental delay, or any kind of neurological condition. So, in other words, neuroplasticity means the brain grows by use. So, understanding neuroplasticity goes to really the core of understanding the Doman method. Sometimes people will see the different activities we do and think, why are we doing those different treatments? Is because all of them are dedicated to the root cause issue, the heart of the matter, which is in the brain. So that is my first recommended chapter number 3, neuroplasticity. Colleen, any thoughts on that before I move on to the next chapter?
No, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. I am. I think it's a really good, going back to our books is so valuable. And it's reminding me I actually haven't reread it in about a year. And I think I should. I'm due for a rereading because you get something different every single time.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. And even parents who have been on our program for a while will often say when they go back to the book, it reads in a very different way because now they're reading it for a different child than they were reading for a year ago, 2 years ago. Now their child can do things they couldn't do before. And so they read it in a different way.
For sure.
Well, the next chapter that I wanted to read from is chapter number 8, okay, which is teaching your child to read. And let me just read a little bit from an excerpt from this chapter. So, teaching your child to read. Reading is one of the most important abilities that a child can have. This is especially the case for children with special needs and brain injury. For many parents of children with special needs, their child learning to read might seem like a luxury. Some parents might even ask, why is it important for a child with such significant developmental problems to learn to read? This is a good question, and there are many answers. The most obvious reason that you should teach your child to read is that reading is an essential skill in life. You cannot succeed in any high-level profession or trade without having the ability to read. A child failing to learn how to read will be excluded from so many opportunities later in life, higher education, most careers, a living income, among many other important goals that you have for your child. A second reason your child needs to learn to read is that reading can help your child's progress in other areas of development, including cognitive ability, their comprehension, their intelligence, their creativity, academic success, and speech. Yes, it can help speech. Some of you might think that this section does not apply to your child because your child is still young and not yet school age. Don't allow yourself to believe that just because your child is not yet 6 years of age, they are not ready to learn how to read. After more than 5 decades of experience in this regard, the following has become clear to us. Number one, children with special needs and brain injury can learn to read. Number two, these children should learn how to read, given the many significant ways reading can help them. Number three, children can learn to read at a very young age. So that is from chapter 8, Teaching Your Child to Read, from the Doman Method book. Both Colleen and I grew up learning to read with the method that is taught in this book. Colleen, any thoughts, both as a kid who grew up around this program and also a mom who's used it?
I think, yeah, the biggest advantage that I've seen in my life and my daughter's life to learning to read early is just the love of it. That it's when it's easy to read, you love to read, and when you learn from a young age that there's so much fascinating stuff in books, or that you can get lost in imagination in books, that sticks with you forever. And I think I have friends who talk all the time. They're like, oh, I really should read more. Or, I mean, I feel that way too. I'd love to read more. But I think that when you have that love, you just find opportunities to read all the time. And I think it makes every kid, as they grow up, a much more interested person and flexible in terms of their in their options in life. I mean, we're talking about kids with special needs. A lot of people want to put them in a box, right? Like, oh, you can do just this, and that's all you can do. If you can read, does it even matter if you're still working on speech or mobility? I mean, you can go anywhere you want, and you can do so many things without having all of those things 100%. But you're reading, and that is a massive strength. So
yeah,
and for the brain, obviously.
Yeah, and I see we have a question here on Instagram from Hills Liz, who's asking, would this program benefit a child with cerebral palsy? Absolutely. And in fact, there are many programs in this book that are going to be helpful for your child with cerebral palsy. So I highly, highly recommend it. And I also recommend, especially if you're brand new to the program, that you reach out, you get in touch with Colleen, who is our representative. For those of you on Instagram, unfortunately, we had some technical issues this morning, so you can't see Colleen on the screen. But Colleen is available to answer any questions you have. Colleen can be reached via email at info@domaninternational.org. Or, since I can't put that up on the Instagram screen, if you go to the Doman International website, there's a contact button. Just hit the contact button and fill out the form, and Colleen will get that, and she will reach out to you.
You can also message us on our social media. If you're already on Instagram, just send a message. There's no hive of people looking at your messages. It's really me. So feel free to
message on Instagram to Doman International.
You'll get me. Yeah.
Colleen will answer you.
Thank you.
All right. And by the way, for a parent with a child with cerebral palsy, I would definitely recommend sections 4 and 5 of the book that are all about mobility development. Those are amazing sections about how do you get a child to go from immobility to walking to running, and so on. There's chapter 16 is about tactile stimulation. Many children with cerebral palsy need tactile stimulation so they feel their body better. And also there's a chapter on Doman Method oxygenation, which is very important for helping loosen, if a child has spasticity or rigidity, the oxygenation program is very helpful for that. Oh, by the way, everyone, this book is available on Amazon, basically all around the world. You can get it in hard copy, ebook, or audiobook. All right, the last excerpt I'm going to read is from chapter 17, which is called Getting Started with Your Doman Method Program. So this is toward the end of the book, and it's really helping parents guide practically with starting all the things they learned about in the book. So here's chapter 17. There's a great deal of information in this book. If you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, we can't blame you. However, don't allow this to intimidate and stop you from getting started. Rome wasn't built in a day. Like you, we have seen many parents take this information and apply it with their children successfully. Here are some recommendations we have for you that other parents have told us has made a tremendous difference in the success with their Doman Method program. Recommendation number 1, start the program gradually. The best recommendation we can give you is to implement these recommendations one by one. You probably want to start everything you've read about in this book right now, but don't try to start everything tomorrow. It might feel overwhelming to get everything started at once. Parents have attempted this in the past, and they sometimes get overwhelmed and stressed and run out of steam. Instead, begin by implementing steps one at a time and start one program at a time. We recommend creating a schedule where you can add one new program activity per month. Please consider the sample schedule that we have found works very well. So here we've provided a sample schedule. So it says month 1, focus on starting the nutrition program. Then in month 2, begin the physical program and start preparing your materials for the sensory programs. In month 3, start the sensory program. Sensory programs meaning tactile stimulation, auditory stimulation, visual stimulation. And then in month 4, start the reading program and the speech program. The reason why we layered in that way nutrition, physical, sensory, and then reading and speech, because some parents might say, oh, but we want to get started with speech development right away. What we've learned is if you implement a great nutrition program and physical program, when you start the reading program and the speech program, the child now has a really good foundational program in place. They've already had good neurodevelopmental changes, and now they're going to have even better results from the speech program. Okay, so that's from chapter 17 from the Doman Method book. We have many other books, but this is usually the first book that parents read when they start the program. And again, I do often, sometimes I'll be speaking to a family who's been on our program for some time in our clinic, and they'll say to us, they'll say to me, oh, I've read this book. And I'll say, oh, do you remember this activity that we discuss, maybe one of the speech activities? And they go, no, I don't remember that. And probably it's because when they read the book, they didn't feel their child was ready for that. But now when they reread it, they realize, oh, my kid's ready for this part of the program now. Okay, let's see. Oh, I've got Virginia here who said that she's dealing with some network challenges. Is it from your side or mine? My things seem to be working well for me, Virginia. If anyone else is having network issues, just let me know. All right, we've got a question here from Faubourg. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. Do I show the cards to my 5-month-old child with Down syndrome more often or longer than I would a neurotypical child? His physiotherapist always says, make sure he is looking, give him the time to focus. Does it apply here? Okay, so the answer generally to your question, of course, I haven't met your 5-month-old, but the general answer is no, you don't need to have them look at the cards for longer. And in fact, sometimes that can be a really problematic recommendation to give, because sometimes if you force a child to look at a card for a long time, right? Like you show them a picture and you go, this is broccoli. Many children will look at it and they're like, okay, got it. That's broccoli. And then if you say, no, look at it. Now the child gets annoyed. And I've even seen some children refuse to look at the cards because it's their form of protest, their form of showing, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. So generally, no, we don't show the cards slower for kids. When it comes to, I'm not sure exactly what cards you've started with, because with babies, most especially with, children with Down syndrome or other neurodevelopmental delays, we begin with black and white pictures and color detailed images to develop their vision. Then when their vision has really developed well, they now see detail, which means they can recognize the face of parents. And if parents smile, they smile back. At that point, we will begin a Doman Method reading program, right? Where now we're not just showing pictures, we're also showing word cards along with the pictures, right? So we teach a picture like broccoli, and then we show them the word broccoli, okay? So for most children, that will begin somewhere between 5 and 7 months of age, depending on how developed their vision is. Sometimes children with neurodevelopmental delays, because their development might be a bit slower than other children, sometimes they're ready for the reading program slightly later. So even though I'm not saying show materials slower, sometimes we need to really make sure the child visually is ready to start this reading part of the program. And it might be a couple months later for a child with Down syndrome. But if you've been able to do a Doman visual stimulation program where you're doing, black and white images and develop their vision, your child might be ready for the program now. I see here, I'm intending to start the reading program with pictures and word cards in red. Great, yeah. So, all of the materials are available at domanlearning.com. And so you're absolutely welcome. I'm seeing if I can throw up domanlearning.com. So at domanlearning.com, there are images, right, that you can find along with the related reading words. So the broccoli picture and word that I just showed you comes from those materials. So you can get those from domanlearning.com, but there's also a Doman Baby course that teaches about the first 6 months of life and stimulation to do in the first 6 months of life. Colleen, do you know, have you ever spoken with this parent?
This may be Ella. I'm not sure.
Okay. Got it.
If it's Ella, then yes. And if not, then message me, please.
I'll just throw up Colleen's contact info in case you don't have it. All right, let me see if there are any other questions here on Instagram. No.
Oh, hi, Ella. It is Ella. She's asking about having the text editable for French.
The best way to get that question answered, Ella, is to write hello@domanlearning.com and ask. Hello@domanlearning.com is the email address. My brother Noah checks it, and he'll be able to tell you whether that's possible or not. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so whether you're joining me right now on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, you can go ahead and type your questions into the comments box, and we will answer them in order. We've still got a few more minutes, so get your questions in now if you can. For those of you who are late in joining, we started the session off by reading excerpts from the Doman Method book, From Special Needs to Wellness, which is the first book that most parents read about our program when they join. If a family has an autism diagnosis, they'll often start with this book, Answering Autism, the Doman Method Plan for Autism, ADD, and Neurodevelopmental Delays.
I did receive a question, Spencer. Now this mother is asking, she just said, I'd like more info on this method. So of course I'm going to reach out to her. But I thought since you were reading excerpts from the books, maybe just a little talking again about how, I was thinking about this even when you talked about the speech component. Most of the families I talk to find us because they've realized that a symptom-focused approach is not getting the results that they want. So I'm wondering if you could just talk for a minute about how the Doman Method is different from a symptom-focused approach.
Yeah, it's a really important topic. So most approaches out there that treat children with special needs focus on the symptoms rather than the root cause issue, which is in the brain. So when I say a symptom focused approach, when you evaluate a child with special needs, their symptoms usually become pretty obvious quickly, right? They may not be able to move correctly. They may not speak well. They may have learning difficulties. They might be hypersensitive to sounds, right? Or not hear well. They may have behavioral issues. And so it's important to realize all of these things are symptoms and not the root cause issue, right? Which is in brain development. And the problem is you cannot treat the symptoms and get a problem to go away. And for those of you who have followed us for a long time, you may have heard me say this before, but the example I always give of this is, imagine if someone goes to a doctor and they say, "Hey, doctor, something terribly wrong is happening. I have, the worst chest pains I've ever had in my life, and I can't feel my left arm, and I'm feeling nauseous and ill." A good doctor will look at the symptoms and then diagnose the root cause problem, which in this case is a heart attack, right? But a bad doctor would say, "Oh, you've got chest pains. Here's a muscle relaxant pill, so that your chest doesn't hurt anymore, and your left arm is numb. Okay, let me massage your left arm so hopefully you feel it again. Oh, and you're feeling nauseous. Here's anti-nausea medication," right? That doctor is trying to cover up symptoms. And sadly, we all know if that you were to do that with someone with a heart attack, they'd probably die. So in medicine, symptom-focused approach is going to be very, very problematic. And of course, most doctors hear that example and they think it's laughably ridiculous, which it is. But that is what happens all the time with children with special needs, right? The child comes to the office, doctor says, "Okay, your child isn't moving well. Go to physical therapy once a week for 30 minutes. And child doesn't speak well, go to speech therapy for once a week for 30 minutes. And your child isn't able to use his hands well, do occupational therapy once a week for 30 minutes. And these approaches are symptom focused, right? So they will focus on, okay, a child isn't moving arms and legs well, let's move the arms and legs. And, child isn't speaking well, so let's try to get the child to watch our mouth and see if they can mimic the movements. Child doesn't use their hands well. Let's try to get them to manipulate objects with their hands. Now, at first thought, those aren't crazy ideas, right? But the problem is they don't work. So, and this is what my grandfather, Glenn Doman, who was a physical therapist, had to confront early in his career. Wow, all these things I learned in school aren't helping my patients. So if they're not going to get results, I've got to find something that does. And he really came to the realization of, wow, I've learned an entire symptom-focused approach. I need to start finding treatments that will actively help the brain develop faster and more effectively. And that's what led to what is now called the Doman Method. So that's what we do with the Doman Method, right? We do not use symptom-focused approaches. Symptom-focused approaches kind of sometimes they feel good because you feel like you're doing something, but unfortunately the results never come, right? So what we do at Doman International is we teach parents, here are specific activities that will help the areas of the brain that we need to target to develop, and then the symptoms start to go away, right? So so just to give everyone here an example, I checked in with a family last week who came for their first appointment at our clinic 6 months ago. It was like a check-in call just to see how things were going. Now, here's the amazing thing. This child was not given a speech enhancement program from Doman International. They were given many other programs. We gave this child a nutrition program. They started Doman Method oxygenation. They started our reading program. They started mobility activities like crawling and creeping exercises, right, that help develop the brain. And we did not give this child a speech enhancement program because the child had no speech 6 months ago at the age of 5, no speech at the age of 5. So you can imagine this is a severe or profound issue in the brain. And we didn't give a speech enhancement program because we said to the parents, listen, we've got to focus on all these other things first. We have to get your child ready to speak. And so I jumped on this call now, 6 months later. The child is now 6 years old. And the family told me, Spencer, our child now sings entire songs. He says all the colors. So he sees orange, he goes orange. He recognizes, not only does he now recognize letters, which he couldn't do before, he names them out loud. So he'll watch videos sometimes on YouTube and he'll see a letter pop up on the screen. And even before the voice says what it is, he'll name it, right? So, and keep in mind, that's a child that wasn't even given a direct speech enhancement program. Now, when we speak, I use speech as an example because it's probably the most common symptom amongst children with neurodevelopmental delays. When we speak with 8 to 12 different areas of our brain, okay? 8 to 12 different regions of the brain coordinating together to create speech. And this is why it's one of the most affected areas of development when the brain doesn't develop normally, because if even one of those 8 to 12 areas isn't well developed, it's going to affect a child's ability to talk. And if multiple areas are affected, the child might be completely nonverbal. So when we do a holistic approach where we're treating many regions of the brain at the same time, it's only natural as those parts of the brain start to function better, they become more interconnected, the symptoms start to go away. And in this child's case, they started speaking. And by the way, when a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old starts the Doman method and starts talking, skeptics will sometimes look at that and go, oh, come on, 1 or 2 years old, they would have talked anyway. Like you guys got lucky. We hear that sometimes. But when it comes to a child who's 5 years old and nonverbal, has never spoken a word in their life, and now in 6 months is singing and naming colors and naming letters, come on, that's not by chance. Like that doesn't just happen out of nowhere. And actually, one of my, as I was ending off the call with the dad, I said to the dad, which of the Doman method programs that you've started do you think has helped his speech the most? Because I'm interested in dad's opinion. And dad said, you know what, Spencer, I don't know, but I also don't really care. He said, if it's working, that's all that matters. And I'm going to keep doing all these things. So, it's an important learning lesson that when we treat the root cause issue, if we're able to treat it effectively, the symptoms will start to go away. Colleen, anything else you want to add to that?
No, that was exactly what I really wanted to cover. Yeah, very important. I just, again, I talk to parents every day, and they know in their gut that the symptom-focused approach is not the right one. They know that their child is a whole child. They see that there's got to be some kind of interconnectedness between their kids' challenges and issues. They just don't know how to figure that out, and know where they're going until they find us. Nowhere else that they're going even acknowledges that could really be. I mean, people, it's funny though, because parents will say, well, we've been told that my kids' issues are in the brain, but we're still doing these exercise, symptom-focused exercises that don't seem to be getting the job done.
Yeah. And, even to this day, I never want to pretend at Doman International that we know everything. We don't. We still have a lot to learn. To give one example, so we have very high success rates with our reading and math programs, very high success rates. Recently, there was a child on our program who was failing to learn math with our math program, which for us is almost shocking, because it happens so rarely. And we pulled out all of the stops, everything we've learned over 70 years with a child with, their math, with this child's math challenges, and the child wasn't responding. So we actually did a little bit of research. The cognitive team said, whoa, what's going on here, guys? Like, there's no way everything we've learned over decades doesn't work with this child. There's got to be something here. So we actually realized that this child, very specific, every child is their own case, but this child was a very rare case where all of their symptoms were pointing to an area of the brain called the intraparietal sulcus, IPS. which is an area of the brain I wasn't even aware of, but it is an area of the brain that can be very important for math. And so once we realized that, we went, wow, okay, what are different activities that can help stimulate this area of the brain? And by the way, some of the activities that stimulate this area of the brain don't even obviously seem related to math. Like a lot of it has to do with being able to sequence things in order, like, to remember your phone number, for example. And so what we did was we actually developed new programs for this child to work on that ability, to try to treat this IPS area. And all of a sudden, this girl started to make gains in math. So it's not that we know everything, and we don't have the answer for every child, but we do have a lot of answers for most of the kids. And especially, and by the way, even with the children that we don't have huge success with, because we know there are certain things that work, but there are certain children who might be outliers, who may not respond to a specific treatment. We actually learn the most with those children, right? Most of our best programs were developed for children, right? We tried 10 things with them that we know worked, and it didn't work with this one child. Okay, guys, we've got to create something new for this child. And that's when the magic happens and we find a new road, So it's a learning lesson for all of us, but it's a real blessing. All right, we've got a question here on Instagram from Waleed, who says, how does the oxygenation program help? Also, how long does patterning need to be done? Okay, so let me start on the Doman Method oxygenation program first. By the way, I know I keep going back to the book, but there's a chapter on oxygenation in the Doman Method book. So the Doman Method oxygenation program can help in many different areas of development. So it depends on the child. But because the oxygenation program increases oxygen delivery to the brain, and oxygen is the most essential food of the brain, right? The cells of the brain need oxygen to survive and thrive when they have lots of oxygen. We very often, when we start the Doman Method oxygenation program, see improvements in focus and attention, in retention and memory. For children with mobility issues, we see better muscle tone, better strength and physical stamina. With children with speech issues, we often see improved speech. Okay, so I mentioned before that 6-year-old who started speaking, they started an oxygenation program. My gut feeling is that probably that was the most important thing that child started to help them learn how to talk. So yeah, but of course, because it was done in conjunction with other Doman Method programs, I can't be 100% sure, but we have seen that with many, many children. So the oxygenation program can help with, in short, speech, mobility development, cognition, focus, reducing hyperactivity with children that have it. It's pretty amazing the different areas it can help with. How long does patterning need to be done? Completely depends on the child. And I would answer this for almost every Doman Method program. I can never say for any program, this program can be stopped after 6 months, right? Because it really depends on, do we achieve the gains from the program that we are looking for? So with patterning, for example, for children who are not mobile, we will do patterning until they walk. Because they need the input of patterning. By the way, for everyone who doesn't know what patterning is, it's a program where we move the child's arms and legs in order to teach the brain. But we move the arms and legs in a sequential and synchronized movement to teach the brain how it feels to move normally. Okay, because many children, their brains don't know how to move normally in a cross pattern. And so we use patterning as a way to teach the brain how to move in a cross pattern. So for a child who cannot walk, we will do cross patterning until they walk. For a child who walks and runs, we will usually do cross pattern until we feel their coordination has improved enough that we can put it away. So some children may do it as little as 6 months. Other children might do it for longer, depending on their specific needs. Okay. And that is something, if you come to the Doman International Clinic, that's why we actually tell families when they begin our program to come back every 6 months, so that we can tell them, listen, your child's now ready to stop this activity and is now ready to start this activity. All right, we've got a question here from Virginia. we are enjoying reading with my son at his therapy center and at home, but sometimes he does not understand the questions from the story. What should I do to make him understand? Okay, Virginia. Well, it's a good question. And I'm going to guess by your question that you're having him read from a book, and then you're asking him questions from the book. I'm not sure if these are questions you're preparing yourself, or if these are questions that are in a reading comprehension booklet. A couple of thoughts, and again, I'm answering generally here because I haven't met your son. The first thing is, I would always use multiple choices when I'm evaluating if a child is understanding what they're reading. So, for example, if a child read a book, I wouldn't say, hey, what was the name of the main child in the story? Because very often when you ask a child open-ended questions, especially if they have speech problems, it can be very difficult or sometimes even impossible for them to answer. So what we do is we write down the choices on a board, on something called a choice board, and we would ask the question to them using a choice board. And I'm just going to quickly see if I can pull up a picture of the choice board from the book. Give me 1 second, because it might be helpful for you to see. And then using the choice board, we can ask a child multiple choice questions, even if they don't speak at all. So let's see if I've got it here. All right, there we go. So you can see here, this is an illustration of a choice board. Now, this is just a simple yes and no choice board where a child can point to their answer on the board. Here's another one with 4 choices that you can see. So imagine you have a piece of paper, you divide it into 4 quadrants, okay, like this. And you say to the child, okay, what's the name of the boy in the story? Is it Mike? Is it John? Is it Peter? Or is it Tim? And you take the child's hand and you point to each of the choices, and then you wait for your child. You keep holding your child's hand and you wait for him to point to the choice. So many children, when you break it down into multiple choice options, it's much easier for them to answer that question than if you ask it in an open way where they have to answer with speech. So I would try multiple choices. Even when we do basic reading evaluations, you've probably seen this, Virginia, in prior sessions, we will always give choices, right? So we never say to a child with a neurodevelopmental issue, what's this, right? Read it out loud. Because again, some children may not be able to speak out loud, or some children will just close up even if they can, because they don't like being put on the spot. So what we do is we give options like this, and we say, hey, where's the word peas? Okay, and we let the child point to the answer, to indicate what they know. Again, for a child, if you have a child who's hyper or dysregulated or has a hard time with focus, I would really recommend just putting your hand under their wrist and pointing to the options and saying, hey, where's the word broccoli? Is it this or is it this? And then you keep holding their hand and wait for them on their own to point to the choice. There's something about giving that support that for many kids helps them. All right. Well, Annabelle is saying, thanks. Oh, sure. Absolutely. Oh, Colleen, did you want to say something?
Just that Virginia had a follow-up to her question.
Okay. So Virginia says, how do I train my son to tell about how his day was in school? Like he said, my day was good. I ate or I played with my friend. Okay. So Virginia, I'm going to answer this question. If a child is able to speak in sentences, but doesn't yet tell a story, because some children are able to speak in words, but not yet really sentences. Some children speak in sentences, but they're not able to tell a whole story, like speaking in a paragraph. So if we look at an average 3-year-old child, when you ask them questions, they'll usually give you a kind of direct answer to your question, but no more. So if a 3-year-old comes back from like daycare, right, and you say, how did your day go? They might give you one piece of information, right? A 3-year-old might say, I played with Michael, right? But that's all they'll tell you. When a 6-year-old comes home from school, if they have average speech, You say, hey, what did you do at school today? They'll tell you 30 things, right? And you're like, oh, they'll tell you their whole day, right? So a 3-year-old sentences, a 6-year-old will speak in a paragraph. So if a child is able to speak in sentences, but not a paragraph, what I usually do, Virginia, is I will practice with the child. I would recommend you practice with your son each day something called recounting a story. And in recounting a story, imagine you start off the day and you say to your child, okay, what did we have for breakfast today? We had eggs, right? So you write this could be on a whiteboard or a piece of paper. You write down on that board, I had eggs for breakfast. And you have your child repeat after me. You say, okay, let's start with number 1. I had eggs for breakfast. And your child repeats, I had eggs for breakfast. And you say, good job, you got it. Easy, right? That's the first session. You come back maybe an hour later and you say, okay, let's add something to your story. So I went for a walk with mom, right? So now you've added a second sentence to the story. And you say to your child, okay, now repeat after me. I had eggs for breakfast. Then I went for a walk with mom. And your child says, I had eggs for breakfast, then I went for a walk with mom. You say, wow, amazing job, right? And then you come back a little bit later and you add a third thing. And now your child does all 3 things, right? They say, I had eggs for breakfast, then I went for a walk with mom, and then I played Legos with Michael, okay? So now your child is starting to piece together a story, but in every session you add one thing and then you run through it, okay, together, the whole thing. This is very helpful for a child with sequencing, okay? The reason why the 3-year-old can't tell that story yet and the 6-year-old can is actually the 6-year-old can sequence information much better than the 3-year-old can. 3-year-old's very smart. They have a good memory. If you ask him different questions, he'll tell you, but he can't sequence the information in chronological order. So what we're doing with this activity is we're teaching the child sequencing, and the child over time will get better and better with giving you spontaneous answers. Okay. Oh, Virginia's saying, don't belittle yourself at Doman. You guys are very knowledgeable. Keep it up. Thank you. By the way, if I ever belittle myself, please let me know. I don't know. Colleen, do we often belittle ourselves?
No. I think Virginia's point was that when you say we don't know everything, that is just the truth. I mean, I think for parents to know that we acknowledge that we don't know everything, but we also do everything in our power to get the answers for each kid. That's where, again, it's very different from a lot of the conventional, models that parents have told me about. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and in fact, having met a lot of other professionals.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you, Virginia. We'll take the compliment. Having met other professionals in this field, sometimes parents will tell me, oh, this person is the expert in our area. And unfortunately, the vast majority of experts I found are complete idiots. And I don't say that lightly, by the way, like I really mean it. A lot of them really are stupid, and often don't have a lot of helpful recommendations for parents. Often they become the experts, honestly, just because they give the most harsh, invalidating, information to parents of like, oh, your child has this condition, there's no hope. Wow, thanks, expert. Amazing help. So I don't have a lot of respect for a lot of these people, but one of my kind of initial tests when I'm meeting another professional is how many questions do they ask? Because if I meet another professional, right, and they say to me, hey, I've had great success with children in speech development or mobility development, the first thing I'm going to start doing is asking them questions, right? Because for 2 reasons. First of all, if they're doing something that I need to be doing, I need to learn from them, right? And then the second thing, which is a little bit more of a negative thing, is I ask questions to really actually see, like, is this a person who actually knows what they're talking about? Are they being honest about their results? But that's another side of things. You should ask questions to learn. And I'm surprised by how many people I meet. They don't ask me and professionals don't ask me any questions about what I do, And my grandfather used to point this out, that he had this experience many times where he would say, 90% of blind children on the Doman Method learn how to see, which is true, by the way. We've, for many, many years, we've boasted more than 90% success rate for blind children, blind because they're brain injured, learning to see on the program. And he would say that to professionals, and professionals would go like, oh, okay, all right. And he used to say, listen, if someone tells you that they're getting 9 out of 10 blind children to see, your reaction should either be, number one, you're a liar. Number two, you're insane. Or number three, tell me how you do that. Those are the only 3 things that someone should answer when you say, I get 9 out of 10 blind children seeing. But many of them never say those things. They just go, oh, okay, all right. And that's just an indication, if they're not asking questions to learn, in this is a field that if you're not asking questions, you're not going to find answers, because the answers are tough to find, right? If the answers that we found over the last 70 years were easy to find, everyone would be doing it. But it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. All right. So, by the way, we probably have time for maybe 2 more questions. Ella's asking, can anything be done regarding oxygenation when the child is too young for the actual oxygenation program, apart from the grasp reflex to help expand the lungs? So for a child, yeah, it's a good question. We don't usually start the oxygenation program until a year of age, until 12 months. And that's just because we want to be incredibly safe, more than safe, when doing any program with a child. So what we do with children before they're 12 months of age is really focus on improving their active respiration with the physical program. So Ella, you mentioned there the hanging program, right? Where you have your child hanging from a bar. It's very good for expanding the chest. It also helps improve, everything from grip strength to manual competence. So that's a great way to expand the chest and help breathing. But the other thing is, the best way you can develop breathing right now with your baby is by getting your baby moving as much as possible, right? Because when a child crawls on their belly on the floor and then learns to creep, these are activities that induce deep breathing because they do require a physical challenge. And so they're really, really good for oxygenating the brain. And by the way, if you want any proof of this, just get down on the floor and crawl like 10 yards yourself. You'll be out of breath. It's very funny. If you walk into many kind of like exercise boot camps, they'll have people like the military, they get them to get down and crawl on the floor because they know it's one of the toughest physical activities to do. So I would focus right now, Ella, on crawling on the belly, creeping on the hands and knees when that begins, because that's going to help develop the respiratory system, and hanging as well. All right. Colleen, before we wrap up, do you want to just quickly go over, for anyone who missed it, the appointment availability again that we have coming up? Oh, I think you're muted, Colleen.
Sorry, I thought I clicked that. All right. Hi. Yes, absolutely. So our next live appointments in Philadelphia are March 9th to the 11th. And we do have space there. We have 1 space left, I believe, for the following week, March 16th to the 18th. All of our in-person appointments are 3 days. But we also see families in other areas. Sometimes you have a 1-day evaluation with remote programming, depending on where we see you. Other options are, of course, Italy. We have space available starting April 20th. So if you are in Europe and you would like to have an appointment in Italy, get in touch with me as soon as possible. And we also do remote appointments, throughout the year. But yeah, the live appointments in Philadelphia, next ones are in March. And then we're looking, I think we might have a couple in April, because there's a lot of travel in there too. So we don't necessarily have appointments every single week in Philadelphia. So again, if you're considering it, even anytime in the next few months, get in touch with me so that we can get you on the schedule.
Wonderful. Okay, everyone. And just remember, next week, I have a special guest joining me on this session, Annie Adamson, who's going to be talking about toilet training. And we're going to specifically focus on, I am going to ask her questions, not just on principles of toilet training and the practical side of doing it, but I also want to focus on older children, many older children with neurodevelopmental issues. They might be 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 years old and not yet toilet trained. So I want to ask her questions about what her recommendations are for older children as well. Everyone, thanks so much for joining. Colleen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.